Thanks for watching Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth. And in this episode, I'm going to demonstrate the VerbSuite Classic Reverb Collection by Slate Digital. And they have, to start, 8 emulations of classic reverb units. I always test reverbs on drums because I think percussive instruments are the hardest to get to sound good with digital reverb because a lot of times they just tend to sound really fake and unnatural. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, it's a very popular plugin. Everybody's giving it rave reviews, and it's a very simple interface, which I think is a great thing to start with. Something that's really cool is that it has this EQ, although I would prefer it to have high and low filters rather than this or have it in addition, but you can always add an EQ before or after on the return. And it's got the attack, pre-delay, chorus, and width, and decay, and then your output gain and your wet and dry, which typically for me, I keep it all the way wet. So this is really cool. Just at a quick reach, you got all these settings, the most important settings that you need with reverb. To start, I pulled up 3 different reverbs from the VSC collection. So let's hear what it sounds like with all my reverbs in, and then I'll start zeroing in and showing you them one by one. Okay, so that's the sound that I ended up with. This is just, a demonstration here. So my reverb 1 is this, which I got the FG480, which is an emulation of the classic 480L by Lexicon. Everybody's familiar with it, and it's one of those things where it's been very sought after to be emulated in a plugin form, and I think this version is fantastic. So what I have here is a plate, snare plate, decay at 1.05. This is really just the default setting. I just tweaked the EQ. For me, I don't really like a lot of high end on my reverb. I cut mostly lows and I cut a little highs here. So let's take a listen to how it sounds. And it's mostly on the snare is what you're going to hear it on. There's a little bit on the kick, but you'll be able to hear it on the snare. So let me show you what my drum set sounds like dry first. So not bad at all, but once you start building the track and bringing instruments in, you need to use reverbs to enhance the sound to kind of create a space to where it can sit in its own in the mix. So let's take a listen to this 480 on its own on this drum set. It is kind of bright, even though I cut this much highs, it's still pretty bright, but it's not harsh. It's kind of a nice decay as well. It's extending that note of the snare, so it makes it sound just bigger. Okay, here's my next one. I'm using the FG16X, which is an emulation of the classic AMS RMX16. Me coming up in the studio, the most used setting was the Nonlin, Steve Vai's favorite on the snare. It's a very popular kind of 80s and 90s sound. I particularly don't like Nonlin reverbs, but I've learned how to use them to my advantage because I guess the reason why I don't like Nonlin is because in the past people have overused it to make it sound cheesy or just fake. So, but it's all taste, some people love it. That was always a reverb that, we kept having to get that unit fixed. And the only guy in town that knows how to repair them now is David Kolka. And it's just, they cost a fortune. So it's great that they finally have this plug-in version. I know UAD has one as well, but what's cool about this is that you have 8 different reverbs within one box, the same interface. So it's great. The thing with the Nonlin is it helps extend the note a little more, make it sound a little fatter, and it's very subtle. This I added a little brightness to it and I cut some lows and mids. Let's just take a listen to the drum set with only the Nonlin. Okay, so it's very subtle, but when I stop the track, you can kind of hear what it's doing. So let me play it again and take a listen. So see, it's very short, but it extends the note. And nonlinear, it doesn't have a decay, it just ends. Let me play this together with the 480 plate and then the nonlin. So it's starting to sound pretty nice, and it's building a space. It's like for me with drums, I want it to sound natural, as if I'm in a big room. These are just tools to make the kick and the snare poke out and just sit in the mix nicely. Because once we bring in bass and guitars and vocals, it's just going to cover up and mask all these instruments. So we want to make these stand out on their own. So basically with the non-lin, I'm adding on the kick and the snare and the toms. But for this demonstration, we're not listening to the toms. Okay, moving on to my third reverb on the drums is the FG6000, which is modeled after the TC6000, which is a more of a modern classic unit. It's reminiscent of the 480 where it has the remote that kind of sits at the console that has faders and stuff. And it's just known for having really cool, rich and lush reverb sounds. And so I picked a room here and it's a snare bright and 1.35-second decay, which is pretty long. So just take a listen and hear how it sounds. This one is just to fill the space. It's just a different color than the other reverbs. Let's take a listen to all the reverbs together. Okay, and for one last listen, let's hear it dry. Not bad, huh? So kudos to Stephen Slate and the team. This is a really cool plugin reverb. It's available in their all bundle, which is a killer deal. It's basically a no-brainer if you don't have it. You just go on their website and check it out. Thanks for watching Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth, and I'll check you out next time.